The R&G British Talent Cup returns at Donington Park this weekend, so let's get some highlights from the most recent race at Thruxton. Ethan Sparks started on pole position. Philip Sorowiak and Harrison McKay were all involved in the action in the early stages at the fast and flowing Hampshire circuit, and it was a case of who really would be the last of the late breakers coming into the final series of corners. Josh Raymond Jr. on board the number 91 Fibertech Honda was up there, as well as Mason Foster on the fluorescent yellow and blue machine as well. He was going for the outside line for third position at this particular point. Coming through though into the final series of laps, again, it was a case of who would be last on the late breaks into the final chicane. Ethan Sparks was leading at this point, but Sorowiak had a phenomenal run thanks to longer gearing on board his bike. Sent it through on the inside with McKay also getting the better of him, and then Ryan Frost nipping up into third position. But it was Sorowiak who took the victory, did the double at Thruxton, and extended his lead in the championship. Well, welcome to Donington Park for the first race of the weekend for the R&G British Talent Cup. Riders are lining up on the grid in the sunshine here on Saturday afternoon, and we're looking forward to seeing what's going to happen when the lights go out. 14 laps ahead of these youngsters here today, and I'm sure it is going to be as thrilling as it always is. Here's the second row. Jack Dunaby on board the Kavara Projects RS Racing Honda. He's on the outside of it. On the middle of it, George Bowes, great qualifying for the number 67, his best of the season, and alongside him is Harrison McKay, who featured so heavily in Thruxton a few weeks ago. First row of the grid is occupied by Ryan Frost on board the Fibertech Honda, who nipped into third place at Thruxton in that second race. Philip Sorowiak, championship leader, is in the middle of the front row of the grid. He leads by 24 points here today, but it's Ethan Sparks who's had a phenomenal weekend so far on board the Kavara Project RS Racing Honda, and he lines up on pole position here today, and that is his second pole of the season. Danny Buchan looking forward to racing action about to begin here as the riders are getting ready to head off on their formation lap. Ethan Sparks, as we said, has been in phenomenal form so far this weekend and indeed for this season. But it's Ryan Frost who's got a 24-point deficit to Philip Sorowiak. Do you see the tide turning in the championship possibly here this weekend?
Do you know what, Tom? I'm not too sure. We've seen Ethan Sparks, grow into this championship all year. Obviously the more rounds, he's learning a lot and he's gaining experience, and this is what this class is all about. He's doing a fantastic job. Sorowiak as well. I know he's a bit of a veteran, we could call him, in this class, but he's still producing the goods. He's hard to beat. He's smart. He races well, and his racing IQ is fantastic. So Ryan Frost has definitely got his hands. He's going to be a really, hands are full. They're going to be hard.
No doubt about it. Talent Cup standings, as you can see going into this one. Sorowiak leads, 24 points the advantage he has over Ryan Frost, as we said. Ethan Sparks there in third place, some 32 points away rather. Harrison McKay just a couple of points further back from him. Then there's a bit more of a pronounced gap back to the likes of Jack Dunaby, Mason Foster, etc. But still some exciting battles going on. So herein is the grid for race one at Donington Park. Sparks, Sorowiak and Frost is your front row. Harrison McKay with George Bowes and Jack Dunaby on the second row of the grid. Mason Foster, Clayton Edmonds and Peter Willis are on row 3 of the grid. Then you've got Josh Raymond Jr., Ben Jolliffe and Blake Wilson on row 4. Julian Correa with Jack Burrows and Scott McPhee on row 5. Then it's Dan Goodman, Sam Munson and Lewis Mullen on the 6th row. Isaiah Devine with Charlie Huntingford, who's had a difficult qualifying here so far, with Dan Stevenson alongside. Then Jensen Bishop, Ben Hardwick and Josh Williams on row 8. And the 9th row is completed by the 2 rows, Lily Road in front of Max here this afternoon. Well, 26 riders ready to take to the grid. Bit of housekeeping for you before this one. Thorley Trevorrow has qualified for the FIM Mini GP World Finals this year by finishing P2 at the Mini GP in Austria. He'll be on the grid for the British Talent Cup next year. It's great to see the youngsters coming through the various ladders that we've got in the championship now, and good to see what will be a new name in the British Talent Cup for 2026.
Yeah, that's what the championship is about. It's a feeder class, they need to learn their racecraft, and that's exactly what it does, so that's good news to hear that.
Yep, no doubt about it. Well, the riders making their way on to the grid. Ethan Sparks, as we said, third in the championship, some 32 points adrift. So whatever happens here this afternoon, he won't be going away as the championship leader, but he could do a great job to close the deficit down to the likes of Ryan Frost and Ethan Sparks.
Ryan Frost, though, he has been so consistent, and that is why he is where he is. He's perfect championship contender right now.
Yeah, top 3 in the championship are on that front row of the grid, not necessarily in ascending or descending order, but nonetheless, let's see what they can do when the lights will go out. Green flag is waved at the back. 14 laps of action ready to go for R&G British Talent Cup Race 1. Lights out and we're underway. Good start from Ethan Sparks. He powers away from the grid and gets the whole shot as we head down towards the first corner. Ryan Frost on the inside of the front row as well is side by side with Soroviak and tries to mug him for second place, but Soroviak sweeps around the outside and holds firm into P2, and a big high side there on the exit of the final corner for first corner rather for George Bowes. He's gone out on the cold tyre and is in the gravel trap, and having not even completed the first corner.
Yeah, that was a big crash, that. It snapped on the exit there, and, you know, that does happen and it can happen. But Ethan Sparks, fantastic start again. He does that, you know, he gets away so well. He's tiny. He lets that clutch go, and Harrison McKay look up the inside. Ryan Frost in there, Soroviak. But listen, Soroviak does this. He starts off like this, gets himself settled down, and he goes forward.
Yeah, let's see what Soroviak can do. Let's see what McKay can do as well. George Bowes there being tended to by the race-safe marshals and possibly the medics there as well. I can imagine quite fairly winded after what was a big impact into the gravel. Hopefully he'll be okay, and we'll see him out for race 2 here later on today, rather, beg your pardon. 2 races for the British Talent Cup here this afternoon at Donington Park. We come down, though, into the Foggy S's for the first time. Bit deep there for Ethan Sparks. Opens the door for Ryan Frost on the exit of the corner as we blast down in towards the Melbourne Loop for the first time. Ryan Frost on board the Fibertech Hondas through on the inside, or is he? Because Ethan Sparks repays the favour. Soroviak on Mackay there for 3rd position as well. And it's all kicking off at the end of this first lap.
I love it. I just love it. They're so aggressive. The elbows are sharpened. They're out. There's nothing. You don't have to think about racecraft and laps led and all this. You're just absolutely going at it these first few laps just to try and get a little bit of space on track.
Well, riders are beginning seat time in other series over the last few weeks, including Harrison McKay, who was in British Supersports at Cadwell Park a fortnight ago. Racing on board a Ducati. Didn't go quite his way because he had a few technical issues, but some seat time on a bigger machine as he now sits at the sharp end of the action here in the R&G British Talent Cup. Down through Craner Curves we go for the first time. Ryan Frost is the lead, Sparks into second, Soroviak his teammate in 3rd position. Let's have another look, though, at what happened into the first corner. So it's the number 67, George Bowes, that we need to look at. He's just on the right-hand side of your picture, tips it in just in front of Jack Dunnerby. Bit too eager on the power. The rear lights up with a cold tyre, and he goes down into the gravel trap with a fair old whack.
Oh, yeah, he has. Yeah, he has took a bit of a beating there. That was not a very nice high side, that, I must admit.
Yeah, I think it was clipped by the bike as well, wasn't he, a couple of times there. Hopefully, we'll see George Bowes, as we said, out in the remainder of the races here this weekend, but not a particularly long turnaround between race 1 and race 2. So we'll see how that goes and whether they're able to get the bike repaired. Meanwhile, at the sharp end, Frost still leads, Sparks in second. His teammate McKay now up into 3rd place in front of, his other teammate, of Philip Soroviak, down into the Melbourne Loop. You know that the positions are going to be possibly changing. Soroviak has a look to the inside, but decides that discretion is the better part of valour on this occasion. Doesn't really matter where you look in this championship, Danny. Racing action is phenomenal, and there's battles up and down the field. But I have to say, unlike what we've seen in some other circuits, there's not really a particularly big breakaway group. I know we're only at the early stages of the race, but we have seen it at other circuits where you get sort of 4 or 5 riders, they go off, do their own thing. But here, it seems relatively even Stevens.
Yeah, and, you know, you've got Joshua Raymond Jr. in there in 5th place. You've got Mason Foster there in 6th place. You've got Jack Dunnerby there in 8th. And they're all close. Peter Willis is having a good ride there in 9th place, a 99 bike there. And yeah, I mean, as we go back to the camera look, we see a little bit of a breakaway there. But up until this point, you know, even Soroviak now, he can't seem to get past. And this track isn't a notoriously hard passing track, you know, like some of them, like Cadwell, for instance. So I'm interested to see if he can get past McKay and see if he's got the pace to bridge the gap now to Ethan Sparks. But Ryan Frost doing a good job. If he can take wins when the wins are there, that's what wins championships. 5ths and 4ths when he needs them, wins when they're there.
Up the inside looks Ethan Sparks into Coppice, but holds the line there quite nicely. Number 16's under investigation. That's Jack Burrows for what presumably will be a jump start for him. He's currently 10th at the moment, is Jack Burrows. So if it's a long lap penalty, that would, I would imagine, drop him down quite a lot, because there's a few riders that are pretty close in contention as Sparks takes the lead. But again, runs it a bit wide into the Foggy S's, and that allows a retaliation opportunity once more for Ryan Frost. This is exactly what we saw on the opening lap of action, and Frost back through on the inside on board that Fibertech Honda.
And I always like to say this, and this isn't scientific, this is me just throwing it out there. But the heavier guys, obviously at the heavier braking points, you know, they seem to have a bit more of an advantage. Ethan Sparks, obviously, he's a lot lighter than the others, and he's doing a good job in those slower sectors. And we have got the number 16 of Jack Burrows has got a long lap penalty, the unsafe start. I did see that, Tom. When he went off the line, he kind of pushing the guy all the way to the outside of the circuit. And it looked a little bit naughty, to be fair. So I think that's maybe the reason for the long lap penalty.
Well, that's a shame there for Jack Burrows, as we said, circulating in the top 10. That's where is he now? As we said, in 10th place, and he's a couple of tenths of a second in front of his nearest competitors, coming down in towards the Crater Curve as we go. Let's have another look at this start then for Jack Burrows. So he was 14th on the grid, so mine a little bit further back. Let's see if we can keep an eye on what happened down towards that first corner.
I couldn't see anything specifically there, to be honest with you, but it, you know, I did see it. Well, I did notice it on the first when we watched from the front there. So yeah, obviously, look, the race, you know, the directors and everyone in the office there, they're not silly. They know what they're doing, and obviously the idea is to keep everyone safe, and that's the reason for the penalty. So, you know, that's what's happened.
And a long lap penalty is obviously more favourable compared to a ride-through penalty, because you've still got a chance to salvage some kind of a result. Long lap loop is actually down at the Melbourne hairpin, which we're coming into in a few moments' time. Down in towards the hairpin we go then, and Ryan Frost it is that leads. Saroviak looks to the inside. Does he get the move done? Not quite at the moment for Philip Saroviak. He's racing in the Northern Talent Cup at Brno, crashed through the battle for the win. But this season has been phenomenal for the number 75. Sits there in third place, as we said, 24-point advantage he has at the top of the championship at the moment. So it's not impossible that he could be overtaken for the championship lead here this afternoon, with 25 points being the maximum on offer. But you would imagine that Ryan Frost is going to need a bit of fortune to fall in his favour for that to occur. But as we said, 3 races for the R&G British Tank Cup here this weekend. There's a lot of track time for these young riders. Yeah,
they're not short races as well, but you know, 14-lap races is quite long round here. It's quite a hard track as well, but you know, that's the idea of this championship. Get them ready, you know, get them ready for it. But Ethan Sparks up the inside there on Frosty there, but is he going to make it on the cutback? Ryan Frost, can't see that. No, he hasn't. But also, what's worth noting as well, Tom, from first place to 9th place, they're all in the 1 minute 40 brackets. You know, all the way down to Clayton Edmonds. There, it's close, and the guys, you know, that's why we aren't seeing them get too far away.
Yeah, that's it. You know, we were saying at the start of this race that we haven't really seen a breakaway group, and that's because they're all squabbling amongst one another. And all the while they're doing that, it's, as you say, not allowing that particularly big gap to form. You've got about 8 or 9 riders all sort of in the mix, you know, in the same sort of picture, as it were. The sharp end of this one, Clayton Edmonds right at the back of it, down into 9th place. So again, if they start squabbling amongst one another, it will just draw them back into the rest of the field, and suddenly you go from what is already a pretty busy one with 5 riders in contention, suddenly then you've got another 4 to bring into the mix.
Yeah, that makes Melbourne Loop, last lap, 5 to 7 guys, as we see Jack Burrows there take the long lap penalty.
Got to be careful to not clip the white line on the outside. He just about makes it through all okay. So Jack Burrows takes his long lap penalty, and he's in 11th place at the moment. He did lose at least 1 position as a result of that one. We'll count him through as we come across the timing line.
So hard to do, by the way, Tom. When you see the MotoGP guys, they kind of practice it all weekend, and they go through it on rails. I've tried it before. It was the hardest thing ever. I got the speed wrong, I got everything wrong, and I realised at that point then I should probably just retire from motorcycle racing. So I did.
That was the moment for you, was it? Yeah, lost 1 place there, did Jack Burrows, down into 13th position. Scott McPhee on board the number 19 machine, just in front of him. Meanwhile, Ryan Frost versus Ethan Sparks coming through Starkey's Bridge and in towards the Schwantz curve. With these smaller capacity bikes, we say this quite often, Danny, we do see overtakes at places on this circuit you wouldn't see from larger capacity machines. You know, the superbikes, if you're going to make a move, it's probably not going to be into Schwantz Corner, is it?
No, and we see it in scary places, and when that's unfolding in front of me, I close my eyes because I just think I don't even want to see this, but they make it work. You know, these smaller CC bikes, they get them in, they ride so close to each other all the time, and they're all so comfortable doing that. And you know, when they go to MotoGP, or if they get the opportunity, that's exactly what they do there, and that's what you need to be able to do. So, you know, I get it, but it's still scary. It makes for great watching.
Mason Foster having a cracking run of things. He's just kept his powder dry over the last couple of laps. He's on board the number 88 blue and yellow machine as Soroviak sends it to the inside of Frost and gets through for second place. But yeah, just finishing the thoughts on Mason Foster, the rider from Norfolk, British Moto 4 ESBK winner, finished 9th overall in the championship with his first ever podium last season. He's had one more to add to that tally this season as well. That was at Snetterton. These riders, of course, have already raced, and someone's gone down at the final corner, and it's Josh Raymond Jr. on board the Fibertech Honda, who's crashed out of what was a top 10 position. And that's such a shame there for Josh Raymond Jr. He was on the precipice of a podium finish at Thruxton a few weeks ago, and let's see what happened to him then. Just lost the rear in the mid part of Goddard's.
And that's just as the track drops there, you pick up the gas, you take all the pressure off the obviously out of the chain, and that's where, you know, it just happens. And yeah, it's a good job it wasn't a high side.
Well, the rider from Pennsylvania will be feeling a bit of pain after that, and let's see whether he can regroup and retaliate in the second race later on this afternoon. Chattering away from the front end there for Ethan Sparks, just runs it a little bit deep coming through in towards Coppice, into McLean's rather.
He does that as well, you know. We saw at Snetterton, his lines were really wide, but they work. So, you know, who says that's the wrong line?
Well, I wonder, you know, as we said, he's quite small in stature, weight-wise as well. Does that allow him the opportunity to carry more corner speed as a result?
Do you want the scientific answer there, Tom? Because I
want the Danny Bucket answer.
I don't know. I don't know. It works, you know. Obviously, let's say power to weight ratio. You know, that is a thing, and that could be the case. But I really don't know who's going to win this race. Ryan Frost is there. Soroviak's making moves, and he's got himself there.
Yeah, Sparks and Frost exchanging places down at the Melbourne Loop. I tell you what, though, Jack Dunnerby, Peter Willis and Clayton Edmonds, they're, again, exactly as we said a couple of laps ago, now being brought right into this battle. Soroviak has a look to the inside of Harrison McKay at the final corner, but nothing doing for him then here. We're only at the halfway stage of this race. There's so much action still to unfold from these riders, and you wonder which way it's going to be. Dunnerby to the inside of Mason Foster, just has to sit up mid-corner through Redgate there, and isn't quite able to take 5th place away.
Yeah, it's a difficult track, this, and you know, the tyre wear as well here is something. So I wonder now if the guys are going to run into, not tyre issues, because obviously the smaller CCs don't get it, but they do, you know, we saw before at rounds that they were having issues with tyres, especially Thruxton, I know, but it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds the last few laps, whether Soroviak's riding with his head to try and save a little bit of tyre for the last few laps.
And look at the way it's ebbing and flowing as well. Now the top 4, they've had a few clean corners, not been exchanging blows, but you see the likes of Dunnerby, Foster and Peter Willis, just 2 corners there where they were squabbling for position, and there's about 2 or 3 bike lengths that just get brought out in that gap.
Soon as you start battling, it creates that, doesn't it? You know, it creates that everyone just sort of bunches up again. And obviously, you know, if they stick together, they will pull away further. But they don't care about that. Why? You know, they're fighting for their own position now, and that's what it's all about. But Sparky's doing a good job. He's just hanging in there in the front. He's nice and consistent. The fastest guy on track was the last lap round was Peter Willis with a 39.9.
Oh, that's tight there with Ryan Frost and Harrison McKay for second place into the Melbourne Loop. Frost does manage to get that second position away from him. Can we see another overtake into the final corner? We can, with Philip Soroviak through. So McKay getting roughed up a little bit here, loses 2 places in as many corners. Just have to regroup. Mason Foster also getting roughed up there by Peter Willis a couple of corners as well. Willis was actually the quickest man out of this group last time around. He was on 1:40.3. He's had the fastest lap overall in this race there as well. So though we regard Peter as quite a wet weather specialist, he's also got a good amount of pace in the dry, and battling with the likes of these front runners in the championship will do him absolutely no harm at all.
No, exactly. You know, you learn. You know, he has been at the front in a couple of races previously, and you know, he's been a little bit inconsistent in his actual finishes, but he's done a good job so far. And you know, you learn so much when you're there with the lead group. So he's doing a great job. But Ethan Sparks, it just goes to show you the consistency. You know, he got 4 attempts in that last lap. I think that's closed up to nothing now. But again, I feel like Soroviak has got a little bit more up his sleeve, because he can't seem to pass and stay there, or you know, pass and go through. So I think he's sandbagging. He might not be.
Well, yeah, he's not building out a gap, is he? That's for sure. He's not, you know, sitting at the front of this one and just sort of toying with them. And let's see how it goes. Frost with a late lunge to the inside. Can he get it stopped? Blocked past, but is that going to compromise his exit on the run down into the Melbourne loop, but he carried such phenomenal corner speed there and somehow hooked it up really nicely. But Sparks is wise to that one, has a look to the inside, but can't quite make anything stick for the race lead. So now Ryan Frost, the number 24, on board that Fibertech Honda it is that leads. He's taken one win so far this season. That was at Snetterton. Last time when we were here for Donington Park, earlier on in the season, he had a podium finish and a 5th place finish for Ryan Frost. Since then, he's had, as we said, a few more podium place finishes. So let's see how this will unfold for him. He's also been racing over in Spain recently as well, having taken a victory in the Spanish Supersport 300 Championship. So getting a lot more racing experience for Ryan Frost, and it's paying dividends.
Yeah, all track time's good track time. You know, whatever you're racing, you're still learning. And you know, I was a big advocate for that. You know, just trying to keep on the bike all the time, because you constantly learning. And you learn silly little things all the time. So yeah, that's really good, and that's showing. But I'm really impressed with Ryan Frost. He's really good into that last sector as well. The way he turns the bike through the chicane, he can sort of turn it on a sixpence. So he's he's riding really well. And Ethan Sparks again impresses me all the time. You know, every sort of race that goes on, he's learning and he's just getting better and better.
I wonder whether we'll see the RS Racing teammates, 3 of them all in succession there, Sparks, McKay and Serowiak, trying to work together. You've also got Jack Dunnerby, who's joined in the picture there as well, as we come down this back straight and in towards the Foggy S's once more. But I wonder whether they could do something to work in formation here to battle for position. To be honest, I don't really think they're thinking about that at this point, Danny. No,
and that is something that the RS Racing team are good at. You know, they sort of manage the guys in a way that's like, go and do your own thing. You know, you've got to go and win races. And you know, there's no teamwork or let's try and break away or let's ruin the Fibertech Hondas. Or, you know, there's none of that. It's all, well, you know, from what we can see on track, it might be like that in the paddock, but from what we can see on track, it's not like that. You know, everyone's trying to win the race for themselves, and good, fair racing, that's what we like.
Yeah, and good fair racing is exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing blow, you know, not corner by corner, but certainly a few over the course of the lap. They've just sort of settled down over the last sort of half a lap or so, but again, it's going to change once more. Sparks looks to the inside of his teammate Harrison McKay, who's now up and into 2nd place. Dunnerby's joining the party. Yeah. He's there now in 5th place, you know.
Well,
he qualified 6th on the grid, sort of dropped back initially off the start, but as they've been squabbling amongst one another, it's just brought him right back into play, and I wonder how involved he can be. Well, Peter Willis lunges to his inside down at the old hairpin, so let's see whether Dunnerby can live with that and launch an attack to battle for position. Speaking of launching an attack, McKay is all over the gearbox of Ryan Frost, I should say. Looks to the inside into McLean's, but can't quite make anything stick into there.
This is anybody's.
Yeah, it is. Up over the rise and into Coppice. Oh, Ethan Sparks. He just loves having a look to the inside and positioning his bike at different points over the course of the lap that you might not see a traditional overtake taking place. Maybe a bit of a dress rehearsal for these final few laps and trying to work out where his competitors are strong. Well, someone who is strong into the Foggy S's is Harrison McKay. Oh, Jack Dunnerby. We were just singing his praises and we've thrown the commentator's curse on board the number 63. He runs a little bit deep. He had his arm up in gesticulation there as well, and it's just taken him off the back of contention there, and it's dropped him now behind Mason Foster and into 7th.
Yeah, Tom, I wonder if he was helped there a little bit, because he sort of looked and pointed, and let's have a little look at the replay.
Yeah, so top riders battling for position. Dunnerby on board the black machine there, and his argument will be that Willis chopped over and forced Dunnerby onto the curb.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I think he could have made that, but, you know, that's just me being a sofa racer right now, so I don't know. I mean, I would have thought he could have made it, but he didn't, so who cares?
Sparks went through on his teammate, meanwhile, for 2nd place. We're now starting to get into the business end of this one. You can feel it starting to bubble up and, you know, build into something really exciting here. We've had great racing over the course of the last 12 laps, but you get the impression the gloves are now going to start to come off. Those who are at the front, for example, Ryan Frost and Ethan Sparks, are they going to try and put the hammer down, try and break away and stop any retaliation from behind? Are they going to get the opportunity?
Yeah, and you look, there's no favouritism here, yeah. When you look at this, you've got the 5 in the fight for this win. You have to look at the experienced guys.
Sorry, Peter Willis to the outside of Philip Serowiak at McLean's. I honestly thought they weren't going to come out of that corner in the same positions that they entered. Sorry, my voice went to an octave that only dogs could register,
great.
I think.
Let's watch this again.
Let's have a look at it. So look, he's on the outside. Serowiak's got the inside line. I think they did make a bit of contact mid-corner, just on the exit of it, and I was convinced that we were going to see Willis ending up in the gravel.
But I just don't know. You've got to say, statistically, that the most experienced guys could win this race. You know, you've got to say Soroviak and Frost, but the youngsters, they just don't care. They're there. I mean, they're all youngsters anyway, but you know, you've got to think of the aggressive, you know, the riding style of Ryan Frost and the experience of Soroviak, but that doesn't always win races. So I am very excited to see the last 2 laps coming up.
Well, championship leader Filip Soroviak then, who is in 4th place at the moment. 24 points the advantage he has over Ryan Frost. 32 points the advantage he has over Ethan Sparks. Both of those riders are in front of him at the moment, so they're going to be decreasing that gap to the championship leader. Let's see whether Soroviak can make some moves and get himself up into the battle for victory. You would imagine he'll be right there, but Ethan Sparks now trying to pull the pin. Look at the gap he's trying to pull out as we come down into the crater curves, and Ryan Frost is trying to follow him there as well. Harrison McKay being in 3rd place at the moment as well. I'm sure we'll be changing things. Fastest laps, by the way, will set the grid order for the 2nd race later on here this afternoon. It will be Peter Willis who'll line up on pole position. Given the fact that we're about to see battles starting to unfold, you would imagine we're not going to see any fastest laps beginning to come in from these riders, so that could be the grid order. Up the inside, meanwhile, goes Harrison McKay on Ryan Frost into Coppice, gets it done, runs it deep though. Frost back through on the inside, and that's going to open the door potentially here for the likes of Willis and Soroviak. We come down the back straight. Soroviak's to the inside of his teammate, chops over on him, chops over on Frost, and now goes from 4th to 2nd in the space of a couple of 100 metres.
With his foot off the peg, because he nearly hit McKay. That was, I don't know. This is going to be chaos. This is going to be great racing.
Yeah, you can see that they're starting to push now. The bikes are making all sorts of shapes. They're normally very 2 wheels in line, very clean. You don't see them backing these machines in. Of course, being, you know, prototype chassis, they're a lot stiffer than your conventional sports bikes. So when you start seeing the bikes moving around, that's how you really know that the riders are pushing on. We begin the final lap of action then for R&G British Talent Cup Race 1. Sparks lead, Soroviak 2nd, Ryan Frost in 3rd, and then Harrison McKay and Peter Willis bring up the top 5. Let's see how this one is going to work out. We come through into the final corner. Ignore what I said a couple of moments ago about the fastest laps coming in, because Soroviak has proved me completely wrong and pulled one out of the bag, and that will mean that if it stays as it is, he'll secure pole position for the 2nd race in a couple of hours' time. Frost has a look to the inside for 2nd place, but nothing doing for him then here, and now Sparks goes from being the attacker to being the attackee, because he's going to come under pressure from his teammates and from the Fibertech Honda. We go 3 abreast coming up in towards McLean. Sparks on the outside, Soroviak splits the 2, Ryan Frost there looks to the inside but can't quite make a move stick here.
Yeah, they're approaching the back marker now, Tom, as well. But listen, Ryan Frost wants this. They need to get Soroviak behind him if they've got any chance of pulling back points in the championship. They need to make this happen.
I wonder if they're going to come up to this back marker at the wrong time. We're coming in towards the Foggy S's. It's a one-line corner, generally speaking, going through there. Hopefully, they stay out of harm's way into the Foggy S's. That's one overtaking opportunity that's removed. What about the Melbourne Loop? The lap riders look to the blue flags and they move sensibly out of the way. So we come down in towards the final couple of corners then. Sparks on the inside. Frost sends it though. Can he get it stopped? That's phenomenal if he can, as Sparks looks back through and gets it on the inside into the lead of the race. Contact between Frost and Soroviak. Down into Goddard's we go for the final time. That's just allowed a bit of breathing room for Ethan Sparks. Into the final corner we go. Sparks is going to take victory. Ryan Frost will be in 2nd and Soroviak in 3rd. A phenomenal end to the R&G British Talent Cup race here at Donington Parks, and it sees Ethan Sparks taking victory number 3 of 2025 ahead of Ryan Frost and Filip Soroviak. The top 2 riders decrease the gap to Soroviak's championship lead. Ben Jalif is out onto the grass after contact at the final corner as well. He shakes his head in disbelief and disappointment as he's classified in 12th place. And look at this further down as well. Wherever you look in the R&G British Talent Cup, there is action as we come to the line here. Wilson, Huntingford, Stevenson, Mullen and Dan Goodman all in the mix there as well. Some in the points, some outside of it. Phenomenal racing action as always, Danny.
Yeah, as always, Ethan Sparks just a little bit more, you know, looking ahead. He got passed up the inside by Ryan Frost. I did not think he was going to make it how he made it. He done an amazing job to pull it back, but that just gave Ethan Sparks that little bit of breathing space into the last turn, while behind was Filip Sorowiak and Ryan Frost locking elbows. So great finish. The guys needed that race. If they want to catch up some points, obviously, to Sorowiak with the remaining rounds available, they need to do that.
Yeah, that locking elbows moment was really the opportunity that Sparks needed to cement that victory, because it just gave him half a bike length or so going into that final corner, and that was just enough for Sorowiak and Frost to not lunge one up the inside. So Sorowiak's championship lead will decrease. 24 points was the advantage he held going into this one. We'll run you through it in a few moments' time, but let's have another look at these final couple of corners. So Sparks is in the middle there. Frost goes for a big send on the inside. He's a little bit deep, switch back there for Sparks, and goes back through into the lead. But it's on the exit of the corner. Sorowiak and Frost locking elbows with one another. Just cost them a little bit of drive, so Sparks holds on to the race lead. Frost sends it to the outside, and the line behind there for Harrison McKay is blocked very firmly by his teammate for that final place on the podium as well.
Yeah, and Peter Willis in 5th place. That's a really, really good race. You know, 0.8 of a second off of the race win. He'll be really chuffed with that. But yeah, Filip Sorowiak did a great job there, but just, you know, he for himself, obviously, he's going to be probably a little bit disappointed. He's got something there I can see which looked a bit loose. I think maybe screen brackets come off there.
I did see it flapping around a bit earlier.
I think that was his screen bracket, yeah, but fantastic job by all three of them.
Yeah, very, very well-deserved victory there for Ethan Sparks. His 3rd of the season in the R&G British Talent Cup. Pole position and the victory. Not quite the fastest lap and pole for race 2 tomorrow, but nonetheless 25 valuable points to close down the lead of Sorowiak's championship challenge. So confirmation of the results from race 1 of 2 here today at Donington Park sees Ethan Sparks on top ahead of Ryan Frost and Filip Sorowiak. Harrison McKay, Peter Willis inside the top 5. Mason Foster faded somewhat towards the end of that one. He was just ahead of Jack Dunnerby, who we saw running off track down at the Fogarty S's in front of Clayton Edmonds. Jack Burrows, who recovered from that long lap penalty after an unsafe start, ahead of Julian Correa in 10th position. Further down the order, Scott McPhee, Ben Jaliff in the mix there as well. Blake Wilson, Charlie Huntingford and Daniel Stevenson completing the points finishers. You see how close it was for those final points places there. We've got about 4 or 5 riders separated by just a few tenths of a second. And let's see what it means for the championship then. Well, 24 points was the advantage for Filip Sorowiak. It's brought down to 20, and another 2 races on offer here this weekend for the R&G British Talent Cup. Ryan Frost there in 2nd place, and now Ethan Sparks in with a shout as well. 23 points, so he's closed it to within a race distance points tally. So let's see whether the tables will continue to turn here this afternoon. Further down the order, some good points on the board for the likes of Charlie Huntingford as well. Jack Burrows also in the mix there, as we said, recovered, so he's now into 13th in the standings, tied with the number 76 of Huntingford, who I just mentioned.
Filip Sorowiak, that was some last lap battle there. Looked like it was having a lot of fun. Thought you timed that to perfection, but it didn't quite work out. You had to look, didn't you, down into the Melbourne Loop? How was it?
Yeah, so I didn't get the tactic quite right. I felt really strong all race into that final section, and to be honest, I was just waiting for the final lap where I knew it was all going to pan out. I had some minor problem with my fairing coming off in the middle of the race, but it's racing and stuff happens. Overall, I'm really positive for the next 2 races to give it my all and fight for the win.
I think you put the fastest lap of the race in on the penultimate lap there. Did you know you'd done that?
Probably. I mean, I was holding back most of the race and then wanted to get to the front ASAP for the final 2 laps. Kind of when I saw that there were 2 laps left, that's where I was like, right, I need to get to the front. So, yeah, it's good though. I'm happy.
Job well done. Roll on tomorrow.
Thank you.
Right then. Thank you very much, Filip. 2nd place then, wandering in now. Ryan dive bomb Frost. That was a manoeuvre and a half into the Melbourne Loop there. It almost nearly worked out completely perfectly, but 2nd place, you must be happy.
Yeah, I think I'm going to ask to get a fun break on it from now on. But no, it was a good race. I led pretty much the whole race, what we felt comfortable doing. Obviously, we've been here a lot, so we know the track inside out. But no, it's nice to start from the front and get the results that we wanted all year.
Rolling on to the next race, what can you do there?
Well, hopefully we can get to the front, lead some more laps and hopefully get the win that we need. But I just want to dedicate this win to my brother, who helps me out a lot. It's his birthday today, so this is for him because I didn't get him a present. So this one's for him.
What's his name?
Jordan.
Happy birthday, Jordan.
Thank you.
Right, on to the winner then. Thank you very much, Ryan. Here he comes, Ethan Sparks. Ethan, I'm not sure you'll know what was going on behind you in that last lap there, but when you watch it back, you'll realise you've done a great job. You timed it absolutely perfectly. Come away with a race 1 win. How are you?
Yeah, it was a really good race. I got out to the lead at the start, but Ryan managed to get past me. I followed him for a few laps to see where he was weak, so I could maybe, if he got in front of me at the end, I would be able to make a move. I sort of timed it well. I got out in front, and I knew, because I'm quite late on the brakes into Melbourne, it would be difficult for someone to make a move stick. So yeah, I took that as my winning opportunity, and yeah, it obviously paid off, so I'm really happy.
A couple of corners on the track, McLean's in particular for me, maybe the old hairpin a couple of times, just running there a little bit hot, just a little bit offline. Yeah. Something you can fix with a bike, something you can make better for the race 2 tomorrow?
Yeah, the wind was a little bit different from qualifying, but we chose the right gearing because we thought I would hopefully be leading, but then the wind obviously changed the track a little bit, pushing me a bit wide, but hopefully tomorrow, latest race, it'll be a little less windy.
Well, hopefully we'll see you back here then.
Yeah, hopefully.
Thanks very much.
Podium celebrations then about to begin for the R&G British Talent Cup. Filip Sorowiak, 3rd place for him. That's his third place of the season, and he's had so many podiums that I've lost count now, to be completely honest with you. But a great job from him. It does see his championship lead decreasing by 4 points, and with 3 races on the bill here this afternoon, it's not a cause for concern, certainly, but just another reason for him to just keep a close eye on who is going to be over his shoulder in the remaining few races. See the conversations going on down at the Fibertech Honda team. Ryan Frost, 2nd place for him. As we said, been racing over in the COV Championship for the Supersport 300 class with a race win. And he missed out on the title last year by just 21 points, if you remember. Now the gap between himself and Sorowiak down to 20 points, with 2 more races remaining here this weekend. And a good opportunity to take more points out of him going into Assen and to Oulton Park as well. Filip Sorowiak for the RS Racing team then, 3rd place for him this afternoon. 2nd place for Ryan Frost. Happy birthday to his brother Jordan as well. Not quite sure how old Jordan is, but nonetheless, a very happy birthday for him. Also James Whittam's birthday, believe it or not, as well. He turns 21 for about the 3rd time. And on to the top step of the podium there for Ethan Sparks as well. Great job from him, his 3rd victory of the season here at Donington Park. On the top step of the podium, but as we've mentioned, his shorter stature means that he's no taller than Filip Sorowiak, who's about a foot lower than him. But some silverware for those top 3 riders to celebrate with, and not that much time to celebrate though, because as we said, 3 races and 2 this afternoon means that it's a fairly packed schedule for these riders then. 2nd race, the 2nd race of the weekend rather, will be at 5:15 here this afternoon. Highlights from the first race of the R&G British Talent Cup saw Ethan Sparks starting on pole position with Filip Sorowiak and Ryan Frost close for company down in towards the first corner. We saw Jack Burrows making what was deemed an unsafe start, and then we saw George Bowes going out of the race on the first corner after a high side. Meanwhile, it all kicked off at the front. Ryan Frost was getting himself involved in the action as he sought to take victory here this afternoon. Sorowiak was there, as well as Harrison McKay, Peter Willis and Mason Foster also became involved in the action. It was always going to be a fast and frenetic affair, as it proves to be every single time in the R&G British Talent Cup. This was Ryan Frost getting the better of Ethan Sparks down in towards the Foggy S's, and again making a move in towards the Melbourne Loop as well. Coming down into the final stages of it though, Frost and Sorowiak had a bit of contact which allowed Sparks just enough opportunity to take his 3rd win of the season. Frost in 2nd and Sorowiak in 3rd.